Hey, what's going on, everybody? Today is September 19th, 2024. You're listening and watching the Daily AI Show live. And today we are exploring the question, is AI music now good enough for Timbaland and other artists in music? So that is sort of the topic for today. We're going to get into where this comes from, why we decided to talk about this. But with me is Jimmy and Beth, and I'm Brian. And yeah, let's just kind of dive right in. I'm going to add this to the stage right away, and we're going to play this super quick. So this is not for what is September 3rd. So not that long ago. What is that? About 2 weeks ago. There was this, well, it was on TikTok. This is on X, but he had shared this video. So let's just listen to Timbaland at the beginning. We'll listen a little bit of the music and then what he says about this at the end. He's specifically referencing Suno, which we're going to get into a bunch here in a second, but let's listen to what he has to say to kind of kick off our conversation today.
I want a female saying on this track, you went to Suno. Okay, let's hear it.
All right, so we're going to jump ahead here to about right here.
How did that thing know how to space? Is it? I don't think it's saying lyrics yet, right?
No, I think it's just tones. It's just tones.
So it detects cadence. How did it get the cadence? Do you understand? Like, as a creator, as a producer, every beat that I do, I can put something on it. I just gotta prompt it right. Now it might not have the right lyrics, but like if it give me like sources of melody, how many melodies? So that's the one that spit out.
Mm-hmm.
So you can kind of hear him like live processing that, which is kind of cool because he's not even really talking in straight sentences. He's like, if it could give me, if it would, how many sources is like, you can just hear his producer brain running, right? So it's a really cool video because it really does appear to be not, it's not a produced video, no pun intended there. It's literally him listening to it. But as we know, this is what kind of kicked off our idea for the show, but this goes back much earlier than this. He's talking about Suno, but he did a Notorious B.I.G. track back in 2023 that got mixed reviews because he said he never got to work with him while he was alive. And so he used another guy's voice and then sort of used AI and synthesized that. And that was last year. And he said, look, I'll never release this without permission from the family and stuff like that. And everything I've seen from Timbaland is, hey, I don't want to be afraid of this. I want to lean into this. I want to be the guy that figures out the solution. Now that's big. Now depends on what age you are and whether you know the importance of Timbaland on music. But for a period of time in the 2000s, he produced everything from Justin Timberlake's "Sexy Back" to like a lot of songs. Everything he was doing with Nelly Furtado at the time. I mean, massive tracks. So that's where this whole conversation comes in. We're going to expand beyond Timbaland and other people that are doing stuff like Paul McCartney and other people like that who are using AI. But let me kick it over to you guys because I know you guys have also, I think, Jimmy, you've actually gone into Suno, and Beth, you guys were just talking about that before we went live. So tell me about that experience and kind of, I don't know, based off of what we're hearing Timbaland say.
Well, so my personal experience with Suno has been kind of eye-opening in the fact that it's really grown very quickly, right? It was already impressive when it first came out. Oh, hey, here is an AI. Here's a system that will take your prompt and, it'll spit out something fairly pleasant to listen to after some iterations, right? You have to tweak what the prompt's going to say, and you got to figure out, you use the guidelines to try and use the right kind of keywords and the kind of descriptive text and things like that to get something good out of it. And then they came out with V2, and then the music started to sound better. And then 3 came out very, very soon after that. And then it even got better. And then now it's at 3.5. And it sounds great. I did a couple extra tracks in various genres last night just to get me in the right space, and it sounds really, really good. Like I know this might be a caveat or whatnot, but if you're into EDM, they've got you down. Like they understand beat progression, they understand the drop, they understand all of it. Like I just typed in a one-word prompt like cyberpunk, right? That's been in my mind for the last few weeks, and I got some great driving tracks just based off of that one keyword. So there is a lot of lifting, heavy lifting being done by the AI. So I'm really impressed with that. I even went back to some older things that I did, and one of my big tests is to try and test it with musical styles or genres that aren't hugely popular, right? If you type in pop or if you type in rock or whatnot, you're gonna get something based off of all of those examples. So my personal test is Hawaiian. So if you can do a decent Hawaiian track, then that means your training data has definitely got it going on there. And it's solid. I was really impressed with that. So I know I don't want to turn this into a Suno review, but that always puts me in a positive space. Like, okay. And then when it came to lyrics, it generated lyrics as well. Now I have to verify how accurate those lyrics are because I don't know what databases it's drawing its Hawaiian language from. But yeah, I was really impressed with all of that music generation, and with what they announced last week. I was really impressed at some of the examples that they for their new covers, feature, and that should be really fun. You do have to have a pro account to access it. Unfortunately, Suno, can you just give us like three generations, so just so that we can get a taste of it, because I saw the examples that they're putting out there, and they're pretty impressive. Like the guy who's singing in his shower, and he just does like one line, one line with a little bit of a melody in his voice, and he was able to reproduce it as blues. And Brian, I think you saying he was reproducing it as rock and all this kind of stuff. So
yeah, I'm going to try to find that while we're talking, because I know Beth, you watch quite a few of these.
Yeah.
So Beth, like, what is your take on some, like, and now this is the covers, and again, we don't want to just do a review of Suno.
Yeah.
That is the tool that Timbaland is referencing in the video. Obviously, there's also Udio, but before we get into all of that and ethics and the larger impact here, because we're all just novices playing around with music. Well, Beth, I think you're at another level above us because you sing and you have a group and stuff like that. But what was your sort of take on, I guess, the covers and what you watch there, or just in general?
So the covers feature essentially allows you to upload a track, or take an existing track that's known, and add a different style. The thing that I think is really key to all of these is this is amazing as a musical collaborator, as a partner, as a musical improv partner, right? So if you have a piece that you're going to offer, and then the AI, and you have some ideas, right? Like I'd like this to sound ethereal, or like whatever you want, right? But you have some broad idea. It can come to the table and blow your mind, right? It can take a sketch of an idea and create something amazing. If you already have the musical idea in your head, you may be disappointed. In the same way, and it's one of the reasons that I reference improv so often when we talk about AI and working with AI to expand your brilliance. You need to let AI expand your brilliance in the way that that it sees as an option. When you go into an improv scene, if you know exactly what that person should say to you, your scene partner, don't go in. Right, because they don't know exactly what you think. Right, like that's not how this works, and it's not how this works when you're working with AI either, in this context. So I think one of the things that was so great in that initial clip with Timbaland was he was talking about finishing a song that he had unfinished, right? And the garbled part at the beginning is him saying to the person who's behind the computer, "You heard me say I want a female singer on this track. You gave the track to Suno, and that's what Suno did with it." That's part of why his mind was blown, because he had the he had the ground, the beat, the under part, and it was the female singer that got added on top. And that is an amazing tool to be able to play, right? Like, okay, sure, do with a male singer. Now, based on covers, let's hear it as a country track. Give me an acoustic guitar, right? Like, you can just start to play with that. And imagine, like, you'd need an amazing band with like 150 instruments to be able to play that kind of game live with humans. That for me is one of the most exciting things about this, Brian.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I just, while you were talking, Beth, I wanted to find his name is Nick Harrison. He goes by Mr. Professor 318 on TikTok. And so I'm going to share this tab instead and bring this back up onto the screen. Now let's do it this way. So this is the reference one I was just talking about. This guy does all sorts of videos. Now, I actually don't know if he's using Suno, but based on what you guys are talking about with cover songs and stuff, I have a feeling he probably is and maybe doing more producing on top of that. I really don't know, but this is the same concept, right? Either whether he's using Suno or a different AI tool, or he's doing a little bit more. But let's listen to the I'll Be one if it was metal, and then we'll play maybe one other one.
See, I know that's
can you hear that at all?
So you gonna try to make me do some?
Yeah, turn up more.
Sounds really low. One sec. Better. Okay. Oh no, sorry, I didn't mean to scroll off of that. I didn't realize he was going to do that. Continue as guest. Just keep going. Here we go. We'll get to the chorus real quick. It's hard not to sing along to this.
Yeah, it's a little hard to hear, but it's...
Yeah, I know. I can't make it louder. All right, well, let's just go to the chorus real quick. All right. I don't know why that's so low. I mean, I have all my volume up on here, and I turned up the volume on the tab, but it even sounds low to me. So I apologize for that. I'm not sure why that's not coming through louder. But anyway, go check out. I mean, people can go do this on their own time. Again, it's Nick Harrison with 2 R's on TikTok, and he goes by Mr. Professor 318, and I can put that in here. He's got Metallica ones as Yacht Rock. It's a good time to go listen to that and just kind of listen along to some of the fun things he's done. Now, whether he's using Suno or not, I don't know. But okay, so look, this brings up the larger question. We've talked about Suno and how much better it's gotten. Now, if you want to see where AI music production was, you don't need the Wayback Machine. You can just go into Google Labs and use their music producer in there. And that would be very similar to what I'm picking on Google, because we just talked that we had a whole show about Google Labs and they have some amazing things in there. Their music generator is not one of them. It's pretty rough. I mean, comparatively what we have, but that's where we were, I don't know, about a year, but maybe a year and a half ago. And to your point, Jimmy, there's been like several iterations. Now, I've always personally liked Udio, but it sounds like I do need to go back and check out Suno. Because I always thought Udio was doing a better job, but that was like a point in time several months ago. And it's very possible that now I would disagree with that, my own statement on that. But let's just talk about other artists.
And I'm just going to jump on that and say, no, Udio is doing a better job. In general, across music sounds, Udio is much more likely to give you something that sounds produced in a variety of genres. Suno, in the way that we've just heard that, sounds very produced, right? There's a certain very produced kind of zhuzhed. The vocals are zhuzhed professionally. Suno excels at that. That's great. If that's not what you're looking for, Udio kind of has you covered in the other ways that vocals can be produced. But it's both our, like, we're disputing magic right now, right? Like, we're like,
That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
This has more sparkle when the thing appears out of thin air, and this, just makes the thing appear out of thin air. Like, the thing is appearing out of thin air.
Yeah, right. Yeah, but focus on what's happening here and that it's creating music. Now, this is just Udio. I have not played around Udio in a bit, but we could just play a track from here. It was a remix of a different song I made several months ago. So I'll just turn it on. I have no idea what this sounds like.
I met a girl night at the local bar. She had those bedroom eyes. She looked like a star.
I think this is awesome.
I knew right then she'd be the death of me.
We gotta get.
But I still had to buy her a drink just to see.
Now these were lyrics I wrote with that.
If she'd break my heart like all the rest, I got to feel that hole inside my chest. I know what they're saying. Okay. I'm on a high.
So that's a remix that they did, and this is what we want for the whole thing.
She break my heart like all the rest. I gotta feel that hole
a little better,
inside my chest.
Now you can hear the chorus.
I know what they're saying, that I'm on a highway to hell, but I can't quit this habit. She's got me under her spell. I'm on a downward spiral, but I ain't lost in a bottle of Jack.
In there, awesome.
I got a heartache addiction, and it's drinking me under the table fast.
Okay, so there's just an example of something. Like I said, there was a remix on that or whatever. I haven't listened to Suno in a while, but I just think that the lyrics and the sounds of the voices to me are amazing. Now, if you're Timbaland, you may not care about that. He can call up pretty much any. There is a line going around the block of people who would like to sing on a Timbaland track. That is not a problem, right? So he doesn't, like he said in the clip he had, like, oh, they're just making sounds, right? That's not actual lyrics. Right. It was just vocal inflections to kind of go along with it. He can handle that. He does, you know what I mean? Like that's not what he's talking about. So the question here is, like, obviously this is me playing around with just a fan of music, not music theory or knowledge, or I didn't go to school, anything like that. This is literally a text prompt and some messing around and getting a couple iterations and getting something that I liked at the end of it. But if you're a professional, now let's talk about what this perhaps means, because there are artists out there who have absolutely put this in play. One of the earliest ones was Grimes, and she came out, she's a female artist, and she integrated AI early on and then created a company called Elf Tech that essentially said, hey, if you want to use my voice and create something new, that's cool with me. We'll just figure out how to like share the royalties and things like that, which I thought was like, that's somebody leaning into it. But even people who have been around music for decades, like Paul McCartney, used AI to help isolate and enrich John Lennon's voice on what was just a very rough demo in order to release a song Now and Then. And that was like, what, maybe a year ago they released that song, not that long ago. So, okay, so where does this go from here? Like, Jimmy, where do you go from here? If you're in music, do you go, you know what, this is cheating? Just like writing a book. Hey, if I can get Chachi BT to write a book, it doesn't matter how good the book is, it's still cheating. That's one thing. Or if I get it to write an Oscar-winning movie, it doesn't matter, it was cheating because it was done by AI, despite the fact that he did it with 7 people and everybody loves the movie and collectively agrees it's one of the best movies of the year. Are we going to give it the credit because it's cheating? AI created that, not a human. So how does this revolve as you see it in music?
So I think you got to ask yourself is, why do you think it's cheating? You use technology today that would be considered cheating, 20, 30, 50 years ago, like autocomplete, spell check, word processors. Those are all tools that have made it easier for you to create, right? I think it's always been my position that if you are putting the thought and the effort into coming up with the prompts and the methods in which you're going to extract and generate, you know, as part of your creative process, the iterations that you're putting all of that input because you've got an image in your mind of what you're trying to create, and you're trying to bring that forth, right? And there's no problem with people collaborating, right? I want to bounce ideas off of a wall. That wall happens to be Chachi BT instead of another artist, or both. You know, I think that the issue really comes with, this is so new. It's so vastly different and seems to cut down in the process time, right? Because we have this very strange, and I mean by humans, we have this strange look at, it needs to be hard to have value. It needs to be difficult to achieve, to have some sort of value. I think that might come from a lot of different factors, and definitely beyond the scope of this show. But I think people need to, especially in the creative space, got to look at it as, this is just one more paintbrush. This is another palette of paints and new canvas, right? Artists have always been really good at taking something new and introducing it and turning it into their own art. They said the same exact thing about photography when photography was created. Oh, that's not creating an image. You're just, capturing light. But photography is now one of the most respected art forms in the world, right? This is where we capture moments in history and things like that. So I think from a philosophical, or from like an art kind of point of view, I appreciate artists like Timbaland who are like, hey, I'm creating something. This is just a new tool that will help me achieve those creative goals. Now,
Yeah.
Go
Yes.
ahead.
Because and it's very interesting that this is something that we're having a conversation about in terms of music, because when you add strings, right? When you are in a keyboard and you change that instrument and now you've added the strings, you used to have a room of violins, right? The strings reference something specific, and then you captured that sound and you found a way to use it in this context. This is actually
MIDI loops.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
This is very similar. Now, the strings in that are licensed. This is trained on sounds that were not necessarily licensed. At least that's my understanding. I don't know the details of how Suno and Udio got their stuff, but I do know they're involved in lawsuits that also want to know the details about how they train their things. And that's a billion-dollar question, million-dollar question in terms of, is it okay if AI learns the same way humans do and then produces something? Because humans don't get in trouble when they've studied previous musicians and how they made their music and then sound like them, but also unique. AI is a better copycat, so that's the challenge in that. But I do think that this is very interesting because of the history of how music has grown in the ability to use sounds and create them in different ways, that this is a next evolution of that is challenging.
So let's bring in some, because there's a discussion going on in our comments too. And so Gwen says, if the human originated and guides it, it's not cheating. What if the human doesn't originate it? What if it's originated solely out of AI and a human is just part of that experience? Is it still cheating? I don't know. Jen said cheating, but I think we were getting clarification from Jen. I'll put more on there for her, because she was talking about, Jimmy, every math teacher I ever had said, you won't always have a calculator in your pocket. Mm-hmm. I mean, so look, my example of that is my dad. I'm not a great speller, never have been in my life. And truthfully, had I not had the advent of spell check, I probably would have had to have gotten better. I mean, I just would have, Luckily for me, spell check came into prominence right as I was speaking and needed to write really good research, and stuff like that. So, where to the disappointment of my dad, I was like, but I have this calculator, or but I have this new tool. And we don't think about that as AI. But spell check ended up being this amazing tool. If I write a great paper and I use spell check, to your point, Jimmy, am I any less capable? Well, I think it goes back to the talents of the person creating it. I don't think people should be taking credit for things that were fully created with AI, but like most things, there's usually intricacies to that. And so I always think back to my good friend, Angela Murray, who is a professional photographer and has been for many years. We went to college together. And I've always said this: give her my phone and tell her to take photos, or tell me to take photos. We both have the same digital ability on my phone. Her photos will be better every single time without delay. Now, she may actually go into aperture and focus and focal and all these things I don't know anything about, right? She will just be better. Why? Because she has 20 plus years of experience as a professional photographer. Given the same Suno setup, me and Timbaland, who's going to produce a more qualified, better track that's more likely to be a hit? Timbaland, all day, every day, I probably won't get 1 out of 100, right? If we went head to head, not 1 out of 100, unless I'm just dumb lucky and Suno gives me something right up. So if we say, oh, it's cheating, to me, we're ignoring all of the human intellect that perhaps went into making decisions. Yes, the tool might have crafted it or molded it or shaped it one way or the other, but how the hell is that any different than auto-tune or anything else that's been around for a long time? To me, I don't find it cheating. I only find it cheating if a human is taking full credit for something that was fully created by AI. But if it was a collaborative process, I don't personally have a problem with that.
So I'm gonna bring this back to I think it's a quote from Rick Rubin, who was talking about taste or discernment, and one of the things that artists do, that true professional artists do, that isn't talked about very often, is the art or the necessity of editing.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that for me is the difference, is one of the main differences. And it's one of the reasons that when we get this faster ability to create, now you have people who are like, oh, well, I know what I like. I only like 5 of these.
Mm-hmm.
But as an artist, you've likely deleted the other 95 of them, right? Artists go back. My sister's a professional artist, and that's a part of her process. She paints, she has a day, she goes through, she rips up 3/4 of the painting, right? And that's painful for me to watch, right? But that was so good.
Yeah.
And that's what's happening here to a certain extent, is that the professionals, whether they're creating the seed or not, they are creating the doorway. This is something I want my name on. This is something that I think rises to the level of skill and nuance, but like whatever it is that I'm looking for, this is okay.
Yeah.
And I'm going to let this out.
Yeah.
And that, for me, again, that distinguishes the professional from the hobby.
Yeah. I mean, look, let's take 2 examples: Billie Eilish and Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. 2 totally different ways of creating music. Now, okay, to be fair, Tom Petty passed away a couple years ago. So what would he have had access to in terms of where was, he didn't have AI, right? Okay. But Tom Petty, for some of his albums, was just like the idea of the entire band being in the studio together, which is unusual. Like, it wasn't like the drummer was isolated in the vocal tracks. They were all in a room together playing live, and they usually used one whole track. They may have played it 50 times, but they used one whole track and put out an album that way. That's very unusual. Now go to the other extreme, to a Billie Eilish and her brother Phineas. I watched a clip one time. It was a David Letterman thing on Netflix, and he was talking to him. They were sitting at the computer and they're going, "That's a different track. That's a different track." And they weren't saying words or phrases. They were saying parts and syllables of words. But the 2 of them, being the experts in the room, Billie and her brother Phineas, were able to say, "That was a different take. That's a different take. That is a different take. They are splicing at syllables and different parts of words to put together what they feel like is the best possible, not even live recreated human performance of a track. This has been going on for years and years, but we wouldn't look at Billie Eilish and her brother and say, oh, you're less of an artist or singer, and I should like your music less because you are so heavily relying on technology to produce something that could not be replicated live on stage. Tom Petty, very much what you would get on stage. That was his style. Is one better than the other? I don't think so. I just think it's two different ways of using your expertise to create something net new. You know, I don't know. That's the way I look at it, at least. So
Yeah,
look, go ahead.
I think just really quickly, I think well, I wanted to go back and clarify with you what did you mean by completely created by AI? Because AI right now needs will or impetus,
Sure,
to activate, right? To do the thing, to process. So like Justin has a great example here about a calculator does fantastical math, but you still need a person to punch in the buttons, right? So I'm just wondering, and this may be the question that it's at the forefront a lot of in a lot of this AI and art space is how much input do you need to be considered original? I think it's the creation of the idea in your mind, right? Once that spark of inspiration happens and you say, now do this, it's just an impressive tool, right? It's just a very fancy word processor. It's just it's that, I think it comes from that moment of inspiration. Now, I think as part of the artistic process, you go through tons of iteration, and like Beth said, with that's a form of curation, directorship, that kind of thing. So can AI truly generate anything from scratch without input?
Yes. My pushback
How
is
so?
yes. Here's the input. Surprise me. I'm feeling lucky. I'm like,
Right,
but it's
right,
a button. It's a button on
Yeah.
Udio.
And
Surprise me.
why is that button any less creative than you putting in a more extensive prompt? I can understand that there's more that you will put into the process, but you say,
maybe.
I'm feeling lucky, surprise me, right? That's your will saying, give me something to work with. Then I'm like, aha, based on what you gave me there, based on to that image that I saw, based on those words I read, I now have this new inspiration, and I'm gonna work on from there.
Okay,
I'm
but
gonna
assume you
iterate
don't.
upon that.
Assume you don't. Assume you just say surprise me in Suno. I don't know if Suno has this or not, but like Suno, it's just like get me started. And Suno instead produces a 3-minute song, and you go, I got nothing. I love it. I love it from front to back. I got nothing. Publish it. Put it on Spotify today with my name on it.
So this is where I think we're coming back to what is the purpose of the music. So we're talking a lot about professional musicians, but if you're listening to this and you are you run a small business, or you run you're part of an SME and you need to create music, you just have something that you need a background track for, or something like that. Is this good enough for that? And that's your discernment.
Sure.
And I think a bunch of people are saying yes, right? This is the level of good enough for that. Is the photograph that you can create of like is the product photography, is the AI product photography good enough for an ad? Is the music good enough for a background of an ad? Is the transition, if we just took like pictures that we created in Midjourney and we put it in something that we said, okay, move from one to the other, give me a transition that goes through these things, is that good enough? And I think we are finding the answers to those are more and more yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
they take less time to
See,
get there.
well, that's a perfect example, Beth. So to answer your question or your proposal, Brian, You press the button on the camera, it takes the image. You've decided that is good. That's the curation. That's the discernment. And so that's what it is. It's just clicking the button. So yes, you decided that's good enough for you. So I think that's a great example, Beth. Thank you. Of yes, it's a button. I'm feeling lucky. Click. It's the I'm feeling lucky button. Now, you know, there's a lot of people who are in the photography world who had a whole big hubbub about going from film to digital, right?
Sure.
Film was costly. Film was a finite resource, so you spent more time on the setup. And then digital came around, and you could literally hold the button down and take hundreds of images. And then you relied more on the discernment side, more of the direction to decide which ones were the correct ones.
The other thing that you can do with this, let's say you have a verse, right? Like you were driving in the car, you came up with like a pretty good verse, and you don't know where it should go. Right? Okay, let's put that in. I got a verse. These are my lyrics.
Yeah.
This is my melody. What is the chorus? And you could do what is the chorus like as many times as you want. That wasn't the chorus. What is the chorus? Right? Like keep going.
That's
And
exactly what I did with that song. I knew what the idea and the concept was for the song, and I had a few lyrics in my head, but I definitely worked with Chachi BT to help me do some of the rhyming. And we probably went back, the collective, the royal we, right, of me and AI went back and forth probably 50 times. This is months ago, before I finally settled on what I thought was the right thing. Because the concept for the song was a guy that is clearly being told, it's a very country song, right? It's a guy that's clearly being told by all his friends, like, we know she's a problem before you even talk to her or whatever. And he's like, I'm still going. I'm still going. Like, I know it because it says in the chorus, like, I know what they're saying. I'm on a highway to hell. But I've got a heart-struck addiction, you know? And so at the end of it, like, she's drinking me under the table fast, playing a double entendre with whiskey plus the girl, right? So I knew what I wanted. I knew that was a very simple chord structure for, you know, for country song, the double entendre, right? You need that fun hook at the end of it. And then I built it backwards and forwards on Udio from there. I started there and built backwards into verses, built forward into verses. So yes, it's a very creative process. I want to get back to what you said about SMEs and businesses, because there is a lot to be said for that. And let's just go ahead and peel back the curtain for this show. So for anybody listening, for folks in the audience, we have been having issues with StreamYard. That's what we currently use. That's what you're watching us on and have been watching us on for almost, is this week 300 shows, or is it next week?
Next week.
Next week. So next Friday would be show 300. So almost 300 shows. We have been using StreamYard, and for whatever reason, it's just causing us more problems. You've seen glitches with Carl, and Carl struggled, and Jimmy does all the audio anyway, or all the editing on the back end. Anyway, we think we need to make a move. Well, one of the things we've always used in the show is music that came with StreamYard, right? This music is just a rock option inside of StreamYard, and it's kind of always worked for us because it was fine, and it has a beat drop, and it allows me to come in and do the intro, or whoever's doing the intros that day over it. Well, we're going to move platforms most likely. We'll talk more about that as that comes around, but we're going to need a new intro song because we don't want to try to take the StreamYard one over. So we're a business. We need a new AI song. So we have to go create that. So anybody that's listening to this, anybody that's in the comment section who feels like they want to take a shot at the new Daily AI Show intro song, you're welcome to, as long as it's fully ours after you hand it over. I don't really care. We have to own the rights to it. But yeah. And so what we're going to be doing, and so Justin said next week, show 300. I know it's amazing, isn't it, Justin? Dash show party. Yes. You know what we're going to be doing after that is actually going and doing a second live next Friday. We'll get into more of that, where we actually use the other platform that we're testing out, because we want to have people in there testing our comments. So I don't think we knew this, Jimmy. It just so happened to be show 300. But yes, next Friday we'll do our show. will end, and then we'll have another YouTube live that starts right after that, but you'll see us on the other platform. And so we'll be asking everybody to come back and hang out with us so that we'll talk about more AI stuff and keep it casual, but we want to see the comments come in and we want to really flesh out the system before we decide. But going back to the music, we're a company, right, Beth, that needs a solution. And yes, we can go into Udio or Suno and go create that ourselves, or maybe somebody else will create an amazing one for us. My only recommendation, my only needs for that requirements are that it has to have a beat drop in it. It has to have a way for it to drop out so that we can do the intro to it. Other than that, I think it'd be cool to see what some of our fans in the comments may come up with, which would be super fun. So, okay, let's go ahead, Beth.
And
if you have one more
just to that point, if you have listened to the Sci-Fi AI show, and if you haven't, go listen to the Sci-Fi AI show. It's a great show. It's done by several of your friends, meaning Jimmy and me, and Andy. But the Sci-Fi AI show the theme for that came from this same idea, right? I'm listening to the open, like you can use any of these, and none of them sound like they were made for a Sci-Fi AI show. So I went into Udio and played around and got close to a sound that I wanted. So
yeah. And Cisco says, I'm going to miss that theme song. It's always the high point of my day. Listen, Cisco, I'm with you. I don't really want to leave it because I've gotten so used to it. But the reality is we don't want to pull a StreamYard song over to, like, we could record it and literally just make a new MP3 and use it. But this is a great.
We couldn't now that we've talked about it on air, Brian.
Well, we can still do it.
That is not okay to do.
we're not going to do it, so it's okay. But I'm just saying it's possible is my point to it. We could move it over. But look, we're an AI show. We're all about the AI. We're all about using AI to make life easier, for businesses and professionals and the individuals. So this is an easy challenge, right? We're just going to, whether we do it or somebody else from our audience and fans do it and listeners do it, either way, I think we will come up with something. And yes, it'll be different, Cisco, but we'll get used to it. Maybe it'll just be better from day one. I mean, there's God knows there's a bajillion different ways that we can go with it. So it's a fun challenge. And we have some really creative people as part of our show as well in our audience. So I feel confident that this will get done and get done well. So, but that's all to come. We're not switching over just yet. You'll have this music for several more weeks before we make official switch. So that's all coming up. Okay, we're going to wrap this show up. Unless anybody else has anything. It's been a fun conversation. Hey, the things you can do right now, like what's your takeaways from this? Like go to Perplexity, go find out who's using AI right now. Perhaps you'll find out it's one of your favorite artists, whether it's in any genre, country or others. And I've seen several that are using it in innovative ways, and decide whether that matters to you or whether you think it changes the way you listen to a song on Spotify or any of that. And then, go play with these tools if you're interested in seeing what they can do for you or your business. The two that we mentioned are Udio, which is udio.com, and Suno, which I don't know if that's .ai or .com. Do you guys know?
It's .com,
It's
but it's
.com.
not.
It's .com.
It's not
I was like, you guys are on mute.
Suno.com.
Yes, Suno.com. So those are, but there's others probably out there. Those are the two major ones. So you can go play with those as well. Tomorrow, we have what we call our 2-week recap show, which is when we're going to come back and talk about a lot of these topics. So maybe we'll come up with something else that just happens to land in our feed about music, and we'll want to share that tomorrow. But also it gives us an opportunity to pause and talk about all the topics that have come out over the last 2 weeks. And that's everything from O1 preview, which there's been more and more on. We talked about this week. It's everything we talked about last week as well. Replit, all the different tools that we've referenced along the way. So come on back tomorrow. Come hang out with us. Like I said, next Friday is going to be show 300. We don't have a topic for it yet, but we will come up with a cool one for show 300. Of course, like I said, we're going to do an extra bonus live show right after show 300. It'll be like show 300A or something. It won't be technically an episode. We'll give it an asterisk or something like that. But that's what we got. Thanks, guys, for hanging out with us. Take a shot at the music if you want. Beth put in the comments where you can send that to if you want to, but basically the Daily AI Show at gmail.com would be fine. And who knows? You just may be the song that intros our shows for the next 300 plus. That's kind of cool, right? So we'll give you credit. All right, that's it, guys. Have a good one, and we will hang out again with everybody tomorrow. Thanks for everybody in the comments. As always, you guys are the best. Until then, Bye.
Aloha.